Hello, I'm Wes Warren. I'm here with Greg Stanley. We're from Whitehall Management. And today's topic is transitions, the world of transitions. We're gonna explore each type of transition that we see out there. There's many different options, but they really kind of boil down into a couple different groups as we're going to talk about. And we're going to comment on them, kind of what we're seeing and how they might be evolving and changing through time. So Greg, you got the list. Why don't you just kind of take it one at a time, I guess.
Yeah, I knew we were going to do this. And so I just wrote a few things down that came to mind from all the people we encounter. All right, first one is work until you can't stand the sight of the office. Let the equipment get run down and out of date. Avoid plant renovations of plant and equipment until it's just too late. And something you said a little earlier, you can end up having to spend 300,000 to put your practice or to modernize your practice when you hope to leave in 3 to 6 months.
Right.
And, it's hard to add that on to the price of the sale.
Yeah, if you just kind of sit and let this go and you put off updates like you pointed out, pretty soon it kind of stacks up to where really to be competitive in a sales environment, when you're comparing 6, 8 practices around you that might be for sale, yours is so out of date to bring it up to that level. Yeah, it might cost $200,000-300,000. And then that leads you kind of down this path of, well, I guess I'm just gonna run it into the ground. I'm gonna uh,
You know
sell it
what?
for almost nothing, right?
I would say that mistakes at this point are far more costly than people know. They don't seem to realize. And the reason it's huge, it's not because they make the wrong choice. They don't know what choices are. It's just, yeah, that's one of the choices. Run it in the ground and walk away. And if you've saved good and you've got a fairly affordable lifestyle, good social security, you'll survive that one. Let's talk about some of the other choices. Here's the one that we tend to push, and that's number 2. Bring in an associate with an eye toward purchase, selling it to him, and smoothly hand it off to him over a 2 or 3 year period. That's good for people who are making a choice decisively, as opposed to, wow, I waited too long. It'll cost 300,000 or 400,000 to put this place back into shape so I could sell it. There was a time in Phoenix and the surrounding areas, Wes and I looked at practices for sale. And it was interesting how many of them, not only did they not sell, the people were ready in the end to give them away. They just wanted to get out from under the lease or maybe some payments. So bringing in the associate with a smooth handoff is probably one of the most successful, even if it's not the one you think is most desirable. Let's go on to number 3.
Can I make a comment, Greg? Because
Yeah.
most people, their problem with this is the fact that they feel like there's not enough business for me, and then I bring on an associate during this transition, and there might not even be enough room to do this. And that becomes the challenge. It's kind of wading through that, and there's obviously ways to fix that. You can open up off hours, but that should not hold you back. If you're looking to transition and where you kind of slow down a little bit and have a nice smooth transition, there's a way to get that done. So don't write that off completely if in your mind you've quickly come up with a couple roadblocks about your practice that might make that difficult.
Let me just add something also, is that if your buyer fails miserably, the odds go sky high of them handing you back the practice with a misrepresentation lawsuit. It's the last thing in the world you want. You want your buyer to win, or I promise you won't win. Okay, number 3, bringing in a non-buying associate, meaning this person's only going to work as an associate. You're a revenue producer. And
why would somebody want to choose that option?
well, you keep it going as your energy falls. In fact, as your energy wanes, you might even bring in 2 non-buyer associates to keep the production up, even though your energy is all but gone for yourself. So the number keeps happening, it keeps producing. That way you're not trying to sell the shell of a practice, a burned out practice. So you could bring in one or more non-buying associates and hold the practice steady or grow it until you can sell to an outsider. Somebody comes in and makes a knowledgeable decision to buy your practice. They've got the money, they've got the know-how, whatever. All right, number 4. This is probably the toughest of all, and it's not the last one, fortunately, and that is to sell to one of your children who is either a dentist or wants to manage a dental office. We've seen this work, but it works at a tremendous price to the owner. For example, if you're running out of energy and you're going to sell to a member of your family and have to, stay in the
Prop
fight,
it up.
prop it up for years to come, you'll be out of energy. You'll probably be checking into assisted living before that's over. So be careful. There are exceptions. It works out for some people. But remember, you're not really only dealing with your own child. They've married at some point along the way, and that's another person that has an incredibly influential input on the process, okay? All right, next, hold production steady by your own energy and will, and it's difficult to do this for 2 reasons. One, your energy tends to fade, but more than that, doing the things you've always done. I don't know if you've ever looked back on your life, maybe when you were younger and had a lot of kids or whatever, and said, how did I get through that time in my life? Well, to try to keep your practice at full power right to the end, it can be done, especially if there's a big case element for you, real solid referral base, not overrun with other dentists in competition. In other words, you got something figured out. Well, that's great.
But that's not the norm, though, Greg. That's not what we see out there. Most people, there is a point where they go, let's say they're cranking 100,000 a month, and they just take the foot off the gas a little bit, and it's down to 75.
It's all they have to do is mentally think about selling and not being there for one
right.
day, it seems like, and they got the worst month of all time. And
Right.
it becomes, how do I sell this thing while it's in a death spiral? And that becomes, we're saying, hey, get back in there and fight. And they go, oh, I'm going to. A lot of times by that time, they're kind of past that. It's hard to go back and be the fighter and the builder you once were.
That's something we should comment on. The probably the biggest thing that you want to try to avoid if you're trying to create or trying to get a substantial chunk out of your practice when you sell it, is that you've got to have some growth. It's got to be on the upward growth cycle, not some plateau or flattening or going backwards growth cycle. If it's going backwards, it becomes very difficult to sell. It raises a lot of questions to the buyer. It needs to be growing. If you want to maximize the value of your practice, you cannot take your foot off the gas. This is why we're big advocates of bringing on an associate, so that does not happen, to maintain the value.
I want to talk about a rather complex and subtle insight into this whole process that tends to catch people completely off guard. And that is, they've spent the last 5 years getting out of insurance plans.
Mm-hmm.
Those patients that remain, they stayed because they absolutely love the doctor. You're about to leave the stage. You're about to step out, and the referrals that practice has are referrals to you. And so when you're gone, there is no referral flow, number one. And number two, if you're out of insurance, because in insurance, it's a little more forgiving, or you have a lot of non-insurance patients, who your staff is probably more important than who the doctor is. Let me explain. You're saying, how could that be? Well, if you have a bunch of patients flowing into your practice from Google reviews, a lot of people coming in, they're very friendly, they've seen your reviews, they love, they like it, and they come in, and because your staff is sharp as a whip, I mean, they know what to say, they're scripted, they're bonused and motivated and impressive beyond anything else. That's a practice they'll probably make it with a temporary doctor. I mean, staff can be so good. Now, if that's who you are, if your office is fueled by marketing patients and your staff whip those marketing patients into shape carefully, slowly, effectively, blah, blah, and the new doctor buys you out and says, I want new staff. I want somebody that knows I'm the man or I'm the person. It's all about me now. Well, it's not uncommon for that to happen. They come in and kill off 2 or 3 of the staff that actually have a grip on this concept, that these are marketing patients. They don't belong to the practice yet. And so they put their whole heart in it. Get rid of those people, put in a new doctor, and you probably have the formula. That's the
Or a
ultimate
lawsuit, right?
disaster formula for failure. They'll never take responsibility themselves. Yeah, they'll come back to you. Hey, I thought this thing was making all this money. You must have cooked the books, or you must have lied to me. Well, it was made up of referrals, or it was made up of marketing patients where the incredible staff turned them into great patients and you killed them off. They won't own that themselves. So this is a subtlety. You need to know that if you leave, your staff better stay behind. And I mean, I've seen offices put it in the contract.
Yeah, and this is kind of the advocate of bring somebody in and transition slowly to them, and not have some big, I'm done, this is the new guy, you know, or new girl. A practice like the one you're describing has high risk of it pancaking so quickly that they have no choice but to start suing people. The other thing that we see a lot of, Greg, and we were talking about this just a little bit, is if you're doing unique dentistry, it almost becomes impossible to sell your practice. It can be very, very difficult, meaning you are doing occlusion stuff, doing kind of larger cases, TMJ. There's certain classes,
even endo.
yeah, where it becomes difficult to find a buyer that fits what you do and is skilled enough with patients to convert patients to that type of treatment. It'd be very difficult to find that type of buyer.
What you'll see is the guy comes in or the lady comes in, and all of a sudden, yeah, they're busy, but they're just doing scraps. They're doing small amounts of dentistry on a lot of people. And what you were doing was where the profit was, the nice, fat, profitable cases.
If you want to transition that practice, you basically have to go the associate route. You have to spend a couple years developing somebody and developing their skills to really gracefully hand the practice over to them, and for you to get kind of fair market value of that practice. Otherwise, you'll be hard pressed finding a buyer. And a lot of cases, it's kind of, you know, just board it up and walk away, unfortunately.
You know, a lot of the people we talk to, Wes, are looking for an associate. So we're looking for the associate. We're trying to get to know that associate. What's important to them, how they work, how fast they are, what they can do, blah, blah. And we can spot a bad fit about a mile away. And so if you would like to have us weigh and measure your practice, really to help you get a profile for who should buy it, because I can promise you, sell it to the wrong person, drive it into the ditch, they're going to come after somebody.
Or the other thing is you get the wrong profile and you're going to do this transition in a year, 2 years, 3 years. The wrong person to hire, you could spend 2 years and get into it and find out this person can never buy this place. And you're at square one again trying to find a buyer. So finding finding the right associate that fits your practice is key. Yeah, it's.
Let's go one more thought. A tendency I see is for when people find somebody and it's kind of working out. The owner doctor, who's going to be there another year or two, he could have slowed down, but if it kind of looks like it's going to work out, they abandon the place. And that changes the power dynamic. The buyer feels like, oh, this place is mine. I'm going to start changing it. And they'll run it into the ground. And your skill set is almost lost, if not completely gone. So be careful about withdrawing. You better be working at least 1 day a week until you're really sure this is a done deal.
Yeah, so I would say, anybody listening, if you're thinking about hiring an associate, you've got one in mind, and you want to talk to us about the potential of that person and are they a good fit, we'll certainly take the call and really hopefully give you some guidance on whether they are a good fit or not and things to watch out for. And we reserve a few spots every week for people that listen to our webinars that they can talk to us free of charge, and we can hopefully give you a little guidance on things to look out for and what's really the perfect associate for your practice.
Wes, in some ways, it almost seems unfair. Here you are, 41 years in practice. You spent 9 or 10 years getting ready, getting licensed. And here at the very end, you can make a decision that will affect the next 20 years that you have remaining. Don't make that mistake. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being with us.
All right, thank you.